This is the Abdul, transmitting from Denver Heights, San Antonio. And I want to thank you for tuning in, and dropping out into these digital airwaves. I am your highly humble host, Jamal Abdul Brown. The Abdul is a doctrine of radical reconstruction for those rebuilding their lives from addiction, inner collapse, and the ruins of a fraudulent self. You were never outside of the divine. You keep talking about your life like it happened outside of the reach of God. Like your ruin took place in some abandoned district of existence. Like your addiction was so foul it slipped beyond the edge of mercy. Like your madness, your lust, your shame, your cowardice, your self-betrayal. Like all of it happened in the dead zone where the sacred does not go. That's a lie. Not a small lie. Not a harmless lie. A ruinous lie. A soul-warping lie. A lie that keeps broken people kneeling before their own damage as if their damage has the final word. Listen carefully. The divine is not some tribal deity trapped inside your concepts. Not some mascot for your ideology. Not some polite religious ornament hanging above a dead universe. The divine is transcendent, beyond the world, beyond language, beyond image, beyond doctrine, beyond your clever definitions and your safe little theological boxes. But the divine is also immanent, present, near, within, moving through the hidden depths of things, in the wind, in conscience, in beauty, in grief, in silence, in longing, in terror, in moral consequence, in the strange ache that comes over a human being when he knows damn well he is living beneath what is true. You were never outside of that. Not in the bottle, not in the bed of somebody you had no business touching, not in the lie you repeated so many times it started sounding like identity, not in the anxious spiral, not in the psychic collapse, not in the false smile, not in the self-hatred, not in the proud rebellion that called itself freedom while you're eating your life from the inside out. You were never outside the divine. Now, do not make this soft. Do not reduce this to a spiritual wallpaper. Do not turn this into some sweet little affirmation for people who want comfort without truth. I am not saying your destruction was holy. I am not saying your breakdown was beautiful. I'm not saying every wound automatically becomes wisdom. I am not saying your chaos was sacred because you felt it deeply. Some of what you did was degradation. Some of it was desecration. Some of it was appetite without order. Some of it was self-murder in slow motion. Some of it was you kneeling to what was beneath you because discipline fell too hard and truth cut too deep. Call it what it was. Because if you cannot name the filth, you cannot begin to clean it. And this is the deeper horror. Even when you were violating yourself, violating others, violating conscience, violating reality, you were still moving inside a universe saturated with sacred presence. You can rebel against the grain. You can spit on the structure. You can numb yourself to the signal, but you cannot step outside of it. That is why the lie never gave you rest. That is why the high wore off. That is why the performance needed more performance. That is why the false self kept cracking in private. That is why your soul would not let you fully enjoy your own corruption. That is why after all the excuses, all the theories, all the coping mechanisms, all the sedatives and substitutions, something in you still trembled when the room got quiet. Because the soul knows. The soul knows when it has become strangled from truth. The soul knows when it's feeding on garbage. The soul knows when a man has started calling cowardice complexity. The soul knows when a woman has confused self-protection with wisdom. The soul knows when a human being has built an identity around avoiding the one truth that could rebuild them. And let me say something else plain. This culture is built to help you stay estranged. It will hand you infinite language for your wounds and no command for your reconstruction. It will teach you how to display your damage, curate your damage, aestheticize your damage, politicize your damage, heroticize your damage, anything but transform, anything but submit to truth, anything but cut the lie out by the root, anything but accept that your life has to come under discipline if it's ever going to come back into alignment. That is the con. Modern people are drowning in explanation and starving for obedience. You can explain your chaos for 20 years and still die in it. You can narrate your trauma with perfect sophistication and still remain enslaved to the same impulse that is hollowing your life out. You can become a scholar of your own ruin and never once become free. Why? Because truth is not information. Truth is alignment. Truth is submission to what is real. Truth is when the soul stops bullshitting itself. Truth is when your private life comes under the same light your mouth claims to honor. And if all things exist within the divine, then nothing is spiritually weightless. Not your habits, not your lust, not your speech, not your resentments, not your greed, not your rituals, not your fantasies, not your loneliness, not what you do when nobody is watching. Nothing is isolated. That is the mystical terror and the sacred mercy of it. The universe is not spiritually empty. It is charged. It is alive with depth. Held within a reality greater than matter, greater than ego, greater than your self-invented mythology. In you, yes, you are not sealed off creature floating through a dead machine. You are a soul. You are contingent. You are answerable. You are being witnessed from within and beyond at the same time. That is why conscience burns. That is why beauty breaks you open. That is why grief can deepen you instead of merely crushing you. That is why love can feel like revelation. That is why silence can become unbearable when you have been living falsely. Because sacred reality keeps pressing on the fracture. Now, here is where some of you want pity more than truth. You want me to tell you that because you were wounded, you were excused from responsibility. You want me to tell you that because you suffered, your rebellion no longer counts as rebellion. You want me to tell you that because life was brutal, you are now entitled to remain disordered forever. No. Your pain is real. Your wounds are real. What happened to you matters. The collapse was real, but pain does not make lying holy. Wounding does not turn self-destruction into destiny. Suffering does not free you from obligation to rebuild. You are not just what happened to you. You are also what you are now consenting to become. That is the blade. And if it cuts, let it cut clean. Because reconstruction begins when the romance with the self-deception ends. When the costume comes off. When the explanations run out. When the soul finally says, I cannot keep living split against reality and calling it life. You do not need a prettier wound. You do not need more impressive collapse stories. You do not need a spiritualized identity built out of damage. You need order. You need confession. You need moral seriousness. You need disciplined return. You need to stop feeding the very thing that keeps you in a world dark, cheap, and divided. Return to conscience. Return to truthful speech. Return to embodied discipline. Return to reverence. Return to the hard dignity of saying no to what degrades you. Return to silence long enough to hear what your life has been trying to tell you. Return to the divine, not as performance, not as branding, not as vague inspiration, but as reality. Because that is what it is, reality. You were never outside the divine. You were inside sacred reality while getting high, inside sacred reality while making excuses, inside sacred reality while sleeping with what emptied you, inside sacred reality while rehearsing your bitterness, inside sacred reality while you made a philosophy out of your own fragmentation, inside sacred reality while your conscience kept knocking like a witness who refused to leave. And if you still are breathing, then the call has not been withdrawn. So stop speaking like you are spiritually abandoned when the deeper truth is that you have been resisting alignment. Stop turning your shame into an identity. Stop worshiping your alienation. Stop building altars to your damage. Stop romanticizing the very shit that is eating the structure out of your soul. You were never outside the divine. You were outside order, outside honesty, outside discipline, outside reverence, outside the courage required to let truth rearrange your life, but not outside the divine. Never that. So where is the charge? Stand up. Tell the truth without cosmetics on it. Break your pact with what is cheap. Cut your habits off at the root. Let conscience speak all the way through. Take responsibility for your soul. Submit your life to sacred order and rebuild with fear, trembling dignity, and fire. Because the universe is not empty. Your life is not random. Your suffering is not outside meaning. And your ruin is not deeper than the reality that holds you. You were never outside the divine. You were only living in defiance of what is holy. Now come back clean. This is the Abdul, and I am Jamal Abdul Brown. Let it be so.